I met my ex's sister in high school when she started dating my best friend. During our senior year, she got pregnant and they married soon after. After high school, I joined the military. I served 6 years before getting medically discharged. Ex and I started dating. I got a good job that would have me leave a couple times a month, up to 10 days at a time. While doing some last-minute wedding planning, a text from her sister popped up, asking, "Have you told my name about what you did with her ex-boyfriend? If you don't do it tonight, I will tomorrow." I asked her what was that. She tried to play it off. I kept pressuring her, and she said that during their bachelorette party, she ran into him, but nothing happened. It was an obvious lie. I went through her phone when she fell asleep. There was text and pictures with him all the way back from when we started dating. They would hook up every time I went on work trips, sent proof to my phone. I woke her up and kicked her out and ended the relationship. She did the cheater script. I told her Stephanie looked a lot like her ex-boyfriend and showed her some of the screenshots of them together in my bed. She started to cry, and I gently got her out the door. I canceled all wedding plans and needed some help calling guests to inform them the wedding was off. My friend's wife said that during the bachelorette party, she caught them sneaking away and having intimate time. When she confronted them, she gave my ex the option of coming clean to me herself, or she would do it. She did not know it was an ongoing thing. Now on to the honeymoon vacation. I had planned it so that it would be perfect for my ex. It was a 10-day trip to another country that she has always said was a once-in-a-lifetime bucket list place. There was nice hotels, amazing experiences, and overall her dream vacation. I was already out about 10 grand for the wedding, and more if I canceled the honeymoon trip. I made the decision to offer it up to them, since I knew that they never had a honeymoon or any real vacation since they got married young and had kids. Also, they just saved me money and time. They accepted. They were able to get the time off work and had made arrangements for the kids for the trip. My ex found out about it. She flipped out and was calling me and texting me about how much of an a-hole I am for doing that to her. How I knew that was her dream vacation. How I ruined her life. I got messages from her friends and some of her family that she lied to and blaming me for the breakup. Her ex even texted me saying that I'm not a real man and then threatened me. She must have went there last night, as he shouldn't have my number. I've not responded to them at all. But am I the a-hole for giving my cheating ex-fiance's dream honeymoon to her sister and my best friend? Not the a-hole. You caught her and called her out on it. That vacation was supposed to be for the both of you, and since you're not an item anymore, she can just plan it anew with her current beau. Her sister and your best friend sound a hell of a lot more loyal to you than she ever was. Not the a-hole. I think you had to have known that gifting it to her sister would cause some tension. Her sister also could have rejected it if she didn't want her sister to be hurt, but it sounds like they already don't have a close bond. That said, my judgment would probably be slightly different if she wasn't married to your childhood friend. You paid for it. You couldn't use it. You get to decide what to do with it. And gifting it to a long-term friend is a perfectly acceptable thing to do. It's honestly just unfortunate that your friend, in this case, happens to be married to your ex's sister. The audacity of her getting involved in your stuff that doesn't affect her at all after cheating on you. You ruined her life. Even more, she did that to herself. Good for not responding. Keep it that way, or simply block them. Obviously not the a-hole. My daughter and her husband, 34 and 33 respectively, just went through a second failed IVF cycle. At the realization that they failed yet again to become parents, her husband was devastated. They live in New York, but he said he's going to extend his business trip in South Beach and stay with a friend for a few weeks to catch up. My daughter is asking me for money to get counseling. She recently lost her corporate job, and her husband refuses to pay for counseling or go. The only available therapist that specializes in infertility counseling in her area is apparently out of network. My daughter tells me that she doesn't know when she can pay me back because her husband controls most of the finances. And to be honest, I wasn't sympathetic to her cause because when she was 21, she was pregnant, and even her boyfriend at the time was a great man, unlike what we all think of her current husband, and intended to raise the baby with her. She said that she didn't want to do this with a 36-year-old and terminated it. All signs at the time pointed to a healthy pregnancy, and we were all mentally prepared to help her through it and babysit it, and what she did upset a lot of people. I do feel like she threw away the chance to be a mother because of her need for everything to line up and be perfect. So I told her that I was really reluctant to spend a bunch of money to comfort her and assuage her feelings, when she's apparently forgotten that she had a healthy pregnancy but didn't appreciate her expected child at that time. And for that reason, I don't really want to give her the money, and will not. Am I the a-hole? I just don't think there's much more to accept than the fact that she had a chance before, and she opted out of it. And because of that, she has to accept she may never be a parent and move on from it. Just like her father and I have had to, with no sympathy from her. You're the a-hole. You don't have to give her money because she's an adult and needs to finance herself. But you're implying that because she had a termination, she doesn't deserve children now? You're an a-hole of epic proportions. Have fun never seeing your grandchildren. You're the a-hole. It's disgusting that you would withhold help from your own daughter because she had a termination before she was ready to be a parent. Not wanting to give her money is one thing, and perfectly fine. Not wanting to give her money because she had a termination 13 years ago is disgusting. I cannot believe you are so unwilling to support your own child through a period of turbulent mental health just because you can't be a grandparent like you wanted to. It sounds like the need for everything to line up and be perfect isn't your daughter's issue, it's yours. She was 21 when she was first pregnant. She was barely an adult, and yet you're expecting her to throw away her career, education, if she was in it at the time, to become a parent to someone 15 years older? She knew the relationship was not going to work out, regardless of whether or not you wanted her to keep the child. As your daughter stated, she didn't want a child with the man she was with. Why is that a hard pill for you to swallow? Now she's in a relationship that you don't approve of. Her husband controls most of the finances, despite her having a job too, and refuses to attend counseling or pay for his own wife to attend counseling. These might be red flags as to what type of relationship situation your daughter is in. Instead of being bitter over an event happening 13 years ago, you should reach out and ask if everything is okay, and you should definitely help her pay for counseling. I, 30 female, have always been a family history buff, so naturally I did an ancestry test years ago. I connected with some distant cousins and had some connections I couldn't place, but didn't think too much about it. Anyhow, 7 years later, a half-sister contacts me informing me I'm her half-sister, which is impossible. I'm an IVF baby, and have always been told stories about it being the last round, etc., etc. Now I'm thinking there's been a mix-up at the hospital, and my parents will be devastated. Then, I realize my actual sister is also only coming up as a half-sister, but I'd never thought much about it. I called the hospital, who didn't even have a record of my mom, but suggested I was a donor baby, and my parents lied. I'm in denial. Impossible. I get up the courage to message Mom. She's cagey. I organize a call. She makes me reveal that I know it before she admits it. I then tell them I still love them the same, and not to feel guilty, but that I'm really upset and it will take me time to come to terms with it. I feel like I've been really mature about what is a soul-crushing revelation to me. Not only did my parents lie to me for 30 years, I missed out on my siblings' lives, and I feel absolutely gross about how I was conceived. I don't know who I am anymore, and I feel disgusting. I may never find all of my siblings. There's at least 10 families with my siblings out there. I asked Mom for information to find the donor and to get the medical history. She refused and told me that she's sad too, and I feel she made it all about her. She told me I've put her through things too, and she got over it, and that how could I expect her to reveal this to a moody teenager? Well, I'm 30 now. You'd have thought finding out I did the ancestry test when I was 23 would be a perfect time, instead of waiting for an internet stranger. I asked my parents to go to therapy, and they refused. I told them I just want an apology for lying for 30 years, and to admit and own they made the wrong call. I want them to take responsibility for their choices and how they impact me. Does that make me an a-hole? I'm trying to be a grown-up about it, but the responses from my parents are alienating me and making me want to cut contact. I sent Dad a nice message after, and he only sent 2 words back. It's been 3 days, and neither of them have called me to check on me. I'm having a mental breakdown. Not the a-hole. Your parents should have told you, and there's no excuse for that. I do think you are overreacting, though. This doesn't change who you are. You have been you since the day you were born. Your parents have been them since the day they were born. I'm also a family history buff, and let me share with you an interesting fact. In any population, there's an estimated 5% existence of non-paternity cases. I have a family tree with 70 couples who are direct ancestors of mine, except not all of them are. If the statistics played out as expected in my family, about 7 individuals in my tree aren't actually my direct ancestors because the mailman was secretly or not secretly having an affair with the wife, etc. Take some time to process this, But this is not the end of the world. You aren't an imposter. Your name belongs on that family tree still. The story is only more interesting now. You're the a-hole. So your parents were desperate for another child, had you, raised you, and I assume did a nice job and weren't crappy. And you think they're a-holes because you missed out on years with siblings? You know that most donors do not want to be found, right? They are not looking to have a bunch of kids show up asking them to be their mom, and a ton of siblings are not looking for more family either. People poking into sealed files with these DNA sites are pushing their agenda on people who might not want it. All this craze is going to do is stop people from giving children up for adoption or donating eggs and sperm. Your parents are the people who raised you. Your siblings are the ones who grew up with you. Breaking them all down to biology is wrong when they did nothing evil. For some background, I am my father's kid from a previous marriage. I've been no contact with my bio mom since middle school and have been living with my stepmom since I was 11 years old. My father and stepmom eventually had a kid of their own when I was 13. She's a great kid and my stepmom's only biological child. Growing up, my parents always presented themselves as very poor and struggling to get by. They also never had constructive conversations with me about money. When I would ask questions about salaries or how much they made, they'd be secretive and tight-lipped. I eventually found out that my dad made at least $100K and had no idea how much my stepmom made. Because we were so poor, I didn't think this was a lot of money. For a better frame of reference of how they pushed the poor narrative, I got my first job at 14. When we went to family dinners, I'd have to pay for my meal myself since they said they couldn't afford it. It was also at this age that my parents set the precedent that I could go wherever I wanted for college, but I'd have to pay my own way. When the time came, it was decided that Parent Plus loans would be used. Essentially, the loans would be in their name, but payments would be linked to my bank account, and I'd be an authorized payer. Despite my begging them not to, they took out the max authorized amount with an interest rate of 8.9%. They told me that student loans were a forever thing, and I wouldn't be able to pay it off until I was 40 anyway. I ended up having to use the extra money because the 2 jobs I worked would not cover all of my bills. I paid for everything on my own. Rent, utilities, groceries, trips back home during school breaks, etc. If I ever needed to buy new clothes, it was always secondhand. I rarely ate out, and all of my groceries came from Aldi's. I seldom borrowed money from my parents and always had to pay it back. I've recently found out that my parents make $250K combined. They have also offered to pay for half of my sister's tuition, a new car, and let her live rent-free on a property they own. This has never been offered to me, and she was told not to tell me. When I confronted them about it, my father just said that he'd wanted to pay, but life got in the way. Now that I've graduated, I realize exactly how much debt this is despite my parents minimizing it. I also have to pay the money back based off of my father's salary. I make $40K a year at best. Without the break in student loans, I'd be in default right now. I know I accepted this responsibility going into college and did use the money. It's my fault for not educating myself about the workforce before taking the loans on. I didn't complain until I found out about my sister. Would I be the a-hole if I closed out my bank account and made my parents figure out what to do with the loans? Everyone sucks here. It sounds like your parents didn't do a good job teaching you about money and how to live within your means. They should have encouraged you to look at your budget and plan your schooling out better. However, you took the loans knowing it wasn't a good idea. Regardless of what they did or are doing for your sister, doesn't justify dumping the debt on them. I am going against my own grain to say not the a-hole. They took out the loans. You had no choice in the matter. They probably could have afforded to put you through college if they tried, even if it was at a cheaper school. Some parents are just jerks. Everyone sucks here. No one is entitled to their parents' money. Millions of people in U.S. carry student loan debt. You knew that when this loan was taken out that your parents expected you to pay it back. You can close your account. Just expect that there will be consequences for doing this. I imagine your parents will not be happy. You only lived with your stepmom since you were 11. Your bio mom and dad did not start a college fund for you when you were young, I guess. You don't mention expecting your bio mom to help you at all. Your stepmom and dad may have decided to start a college fund for your sister. I don't know the age difference between you and your sister. They have had a lot longer to save for college and are maybe in a better place financially to do so. Even then, they are only willing to pay half. My half-brothers were much better off financially than I was when I grew up. My parents had more money available and less debt then. I don't blame them for me having less. My parents had a casual thing resulting in me. Mom stayed single, Dad married. Mom had more money than Dad. I was always sort of aware of that. When my dad married his wife Angie, I was maybe 4, and I don't remember those super early days. But I do remember she was always calling my mom the baby mama, and more specifically, the bitter baby mama. She never tried to hide that stuff from me. Not sure Dad knew for sure, but I always assumed he at least knew how she felt about Mom. Her annoyance at my mom only got worse when she and my dad had 6 kids in 8 years and struggled to afford them. My mom refused to help them out, or give them anything, or play an aunt-like person to their kids, and Angie hated Mom for that. She'd always say it was just bitterness that she was the baby mama and not the wifey poo, what she calls herself. So yeah, I always disliked Angie. Dad was always more polite to Mom while I was around, and she never said anything about either of them, so if he was a jerk, I didn't know about it. I'm now 26, and I got engaged 3 months ago. Angie was all excited and told all her friends and family that she couldn't wait to plan the wedding with me, and how they'd of course all be welcome dress shopping with us. I said nothing to her about wedding stuff, and then she found out that I took my mom and both grandmas window shopping for wedding dresses. I want an idea of what I want for my wedding before booking a consultation. She called and said how, as my stepmom, she should have been included in all that, and she thought I'd want my real family there, and how could I invite her instead? I told her she was crazy and pathetic if she thought I would pick her, the woman who always spoke degradingly about my mom, and who felt entitled to what my mom worked hard for, over my actual mom, who never spoke a bad word about her or Dad. She shrieked and asked what I said. So I told her that she was crazy, and her behavior was pathetic, and she was nothing more than my dad's +1. She told me she had treated me well enough to expect more respect, and how ducking dare I talk to her that way. She told everyone she knew, it feels like, even posting it to Facebook. Dad called after the encounter and asked me what happened, and I told him everything. He asked if I would be willing to accept an apology from her, and maybe apologize for calling her crazy. He didn't say anything about pathetic. I told him it would depend, because I don't think she's a good enough person to give a genuine apology. She sent me a text afterward. I assume after my dad tried to get her to apologize, saying I owed her all the apologies and needed to work on making it up to her. My aunt, Dad's sister, said nobody really likes Angie except for Dad, but to keep the peace, I should maybe apologize, even if I don't mean it. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. I'm petty and would tell my dad, here's your choice. I apologize, but she's not coming to the wedding, and I'm going no contact. She apologizes, and she sits in her seat at the wedding and blends into the furniture, and if she makes a ruckus, no contact. Not the a-hole. It's your choice as to who you choose to be involved with wedding planning. If your stepmother has really been this much of an a-hole regarding the topic of your mother, it makes sense as to why you'd snap. I'm just going to go with not the a-hole here. Angie doesn't deserve a relationship with you, and it seems you have little interest in one with her. Nothing wrong there. I'm also not sure what Angie thought was going to happen by trash-talking your own mother to your face from the day you were old enough to understand. That's generally a no-no towards someone you want a positive relationship with.